Hello, I'm Larry Berkelhammer. I have with me Dr. Erik Peper, a renowned authority on psychophysiological self-regulation. And I'm going to take this opportunity to ask some interesting questions that I would love the answers to.
No, it will be a pleasure.
I read something that fascinated me. People living with schizophrenia have 1/3 the cancer rates of the general population. And I'm very intrigued by this, and I wonder if you have any explanation for this.
Well, I don't totally know if it's 1/3 or not, but at least I'm familiar with the data that they have a lower rate of cancers. And the question is, how come? And the only way I can understand that is thinking of the immune system. That namely, there is some evidence to support that people who are very rational have higher cancer rates and have poor survival. And that because being rational means you don't listen to yourself what you need. And here I really think of the work by Larry LeShan, who wrote a great book called Cancer as a Turning Point, and this kind of work, or Helmut Mills out of Germany, where they really do show that there appears to be a kind of personality, I hate to use that word, maybe way how you process the world, that is either what we would now label immune supportive or immune suppressive. Immune supportive would mean I am doing the things I like for me, not for my mother, not what my culture says. It means that if I feel tired and it's Saturday morning, I listen to myself and get more sleep versus taking my child to the soccer game. I mean, that's kind of paradoxical way. But if I'm very rational, then I should take my child to the soccer game. And so you could think of the schizophrenic in that way, that in a way they're just living that emotional, I mean, it's almost craziness, their expressiveness. And then it's not immune suppressant. So to me, that's how I can make sense out of it.
This is interesting. I'm wondering if there's a way we can benefit from this knowledge. For example, what if we, as rational people, were to look at everything we're doing and reassess it as a choice? You know, in other words, I don't have to do anything. I'm choosing to do everything I do. If I have to go in for an invasive medical procedure, I would typically say, oh, I have to go in for this procedure. But if I were to say, I want to go in for this because it will help, it'll benefit my health, would that be along those lines?
It's in the same theme. The data seems very good that if you're choosing something, you do much better.
Right.
If you are a patient and you have two options and you're choosing one, even though it's harmful or painful, you'll do much better than if you have to do it.
Right.
In older people, those who now leave their own home and now have to go to a home for care, then those people who see, I can do this, or I can live with my sister or a brother or whatever, they have a remarkable survival. Those who feel this is the only choice, not no choice,
fatalistic,
that I have to do it, they tend to have a very poor survival right away, even though their physical status is the same. The key really is, the challenge is, for most of us, is that how do you balance this kind of intuitive, almost selfishness, to listen to yourself, and that is the critical part. How can I listen to myself and balance that at the same time by being altruistic? And that's a dynamic part. And when you study people, those who do that tend to live well.
I don't remember who the researcher was, but I remember in the early 90s, there was research being done with AIDS patients at University of California, San Francisco Medical Center, and they found that the ability to say no to a request, if someone makes a request of you and you don't want to do it, your ability to refuse actually correlates with better health.
It correlates with better survival. This was the work, in fact, starting in the 80s, looking at the long-term HIV patients who survived. That's before antivirals.
Right, yes.
And those who listened to themselves, said no, who were expressive of their emotions, who did not see AIDS as a punishment, and all that kind of guilt, they did significantly better. There's also similar observations with patients with cancer, that those patients who are almost orny to say that. What I really mean is these are patients who listen to themselves. So when a doctor says, you must come in Tuesday, for your test, the patient says, I'm sorry, but you know, I've scheduled a family event or whatever.
Yeah.
That to me is more important. They in fact do better.
Yes.
Because they're listening to what is important for them. The challenge is, are they doing that family event because they want to or because they should do it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what you want to live in the world, you want to start living in the world for choices. And when I work with students, this is one of the more critical parts. When I ask students, you know, many of them will say, I have to do homework. Yeah. And I look at them and say, you don't have to do any homework.
Right.
You don't have to do anything.
Right.
Because you can choose to drop, you can choose not to do it, you can choose to drop out, you can choose to become homeless.
Right.
Many of them still have choices.
There's always a choice.
And the moment...
Viktor Frankl showed this when he was in the Nazi death camps, that there are always choices we can make.
Yes.
In the most horrific situations, where we think all choice has been taken away from us. In fact, we still have choices.
Let me give this as an experiment. Is that okay? A 1 minute little practice. Just sit for a moment, Larry. Mm-hmm. And just for a moment, think of something you have to do. Just don't have to tell me. Just say, I have to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got it.
And really check how you feel. Just keep like a mantra saying, I have to do it. Mm-hmm. You know, I have to, I must.
Right.
And now change the vocabulary and say, I'm choosing it, or I choose not to do it.
Yeah.
And just change that vocabulary.
It feels very different. In the first one, I felt a sense of heaviness and repression. And in the second one, I feel powerful, like I'm choosing this.
That's right. Or you can say, I choose not to. And most people don't realize they often have options. And when you're choosing to do something, you're going towards something. When you have to do something, you're dragging and going there, and it feels heavier. Your immune system is almost suppressed.
Yep. When I was at I trained at the Simonton Cancer Center for 3 years with Dr. O. Carl Simonton. And it was very funny. Throughout the week-long residential retreat for cancer patients, the cancer patients would often say things like, I have to do this. And they would always go, you do? Do you really? It was very funny.
Yes, and it's absolutely true. You know, the moment you can really say, do you really have to do something? No, you don't have to do any treatment. You have a choice.
You always have a choice.
You can have a choice not to do it. You have a choice to increase your risk of dying. You have a choice to increase your risk of living.
Yeah.
It's not totally in your hands.
This is one of the most empowering things that I've taken on in my life, where I actually have recommended to clients every night before you go to bed, think of the things you're going to be, of your schedule for the next day. Preface each one of those things with, I'm choosing to. And when you get up in the morning, to think of your schedule for the day and preface each activity with, I'm choosing to do this. I want to do this. I look forward to doing this.
And when you do that, you're making choices.
Yep.
And when you have and health is the ability to make choices.
Health is the ability to make choices.
And having the skills.
I love that. Yeah, right. Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Erik Peper.
Well, thanks, Larry.